So we're going to talk this morning about nurturing independence, and I'm going to open this presentation with a disclaimer that just like so many of the other topics that we cover, there are some kids that are just born with a personality that lends itself to being more independent, and others that need a lot more encouragement, skill building, and even a little tough love to become independent. That every child is unique. Every child is unique. And so I just want to share with you some practical ways in which you can encourage your children to become more self-sufficient and less dependent on your reminders. So one of the things that you can work on is to shift your language. And when you're giving a direction or command, try to use thinking language instead of telling language. So you can ask questions or use noticing language. I know that this is often used in the classroom. I noticed that is a great way to introduce your sentences and the things that you're observing. And so asking questions about what they should be doing versus telling them. So rather than telling them, after breakfast, go brush your teeth, you can ask it in the form of a question. I'm wondering what comes after eating breakfast in our morning routine. And so that one gives them the opportunity to think about the routine and what they need to do next. The other one is prompt directed, where you just give them the prompt of what to do next. And so just that slight shift can really help. Or, what do you think you should be doing right now? Instead of telling them to go get their backpack, they're just sitting there or standing there. It's like, what should you be doing now? And so these types of prompts of shifting the language helps to nurture and foster that independence. What we're noticing is a lot of over-prompting, or children who are dependent upon prompts in the classroom because a lot of times parents are giving prompts all of the time, and students don't do anything unless they're prompted to do so. And sometimes prompted multiple times to do so. Brush your teeth. I told you to go brush your teeth. I said to go brush your teeth. And so they won't do anything unless they are told to do so, and often told to do so multiple times. And if we are able to shift the language, again, slightly from thinking language, what should you be doing, be thinking about what comes next, then that helps them to think of that on their own and to act in that regard. Another thing that's really important is to stop doing tasks for them that they can do for themselves. So every time that we do it for them, we deny them the ability to practice that skill. I think one of the key factors here is building in more time, because you can do it faster than they can. And if we're in a hurry and they're taking longer, then we just do it for them because it's so much quicker. And but they need to be able to do the task on their own, and they can physically do it in order to build in muscle memory. So at pre-K, for the first week of school, we have the parents come in and help them into the classrooms and get situated. And then after the first week, then we just have them dropped off at the gate. And this has been a shift. Prior to the pandemic, the parents would come in. I think all throughout the year they would come in. And this is one of the things that we've really noticed with that shift is after week 2, the pre-K students are able to do everything for themselves. They put their backpack on the hook, they get their water bottle out, they get their folder out, they put everything away. Prior to that, it took about 3 months in order for them to build that independence. Because the parents would bring them in, the parents would hang the backpack up on the hook, and if the parents are doing it for them, the child will let them. If my wife does things for me all the time, I usually let her do it. When she doesn't do things for me all the time, then I step in and I have to do this myself. And so as long as we are doing it for them, the child will let you do it, but they won't learn how to do it. And then also sometimes we still see this happen is even though the children know how to do it and can do it on their own and been doing it for months, if the parent comes in even like once or occasionally and does it for them, the child just steps back. Oh, great. Look, mom and dad can do it too. That's amazing. How did they learn how to do that? And so stopping doing tasks for them that they can do for themselves is another real key factor in helping to nurture independence. Another thing that's really important is letting them make mistakes. And this is something that we've visited about before in a parent education workshop, something that's really central in the way that we approach our education here at PCDS is a growth mindset and recognizing that mistakes is all part of the learning process and that this is something actually that should be encouraged, and that if you aren't making mistakes, it means you aren't being like challenged enough in order to be able to try things that are outside of your comfort zone. And it seems as if children these days are given less opportunities to make mistakes, and when they do, there's often a parent nearby to fix it, which then also takes away another opportunity for them to problem solve. Like, I tried this, oops, I made a mistake, now what am I going to do to correct it? And so a lot of these opportunities for learning, for growth, for problem solving are interrupted because the parents are uncomfortable with them making mistakes. So I encourage you to give them lots of opportunities to make their own choices, to give them the space to do so, which also means letting them suffer the consequences. And again, we're giving them choices in an environment of relative safety so that the consequences aren't, drastic or detrimental or critical. It's just consequences that they suffer, and that's part of the learning experience. So even if their choice doesn't work out the way that they want to, that they learn from that, and those mistakes are okay and part of the learning experience. I also want to, and I'm going to put these resources up at the end as well. So in the book Thrivers, and again I'll give the author and more information at the end in terms of the resources, this talks about a first grader who is holding a crumpled paper behind his back and obviously distressed. And the mom saw that he was distressed, gave him a hug, smoothed out the crumpled paper, and noticed that he had missed 5 words on his spelling test. And these 5 words that he missed were easily identified with large red check marks. And the mom said, "Wasn't it nice that your teacher took time to put these red check marks on your paper?" Do you know why she did that? The boy's like, why did you do that? She wants you to study those checked words so you won't make the same mistake. She must really care about you. Then a few weeks later, the boy was holding a package while he was dashing to the bus, and the mom said, "What's that you have? What are you taking to school?" And he said, "It's a present from my teacher." She looked inside. It was a red pencil. The boy said, "Now she'll always have one to mark my mistakes so I won't make the same ones again." So we can think about mistakes in a different way, shift our thinking about it, share with the children that mistakes are part of the learning process, and they can learn to view that in a different way and not in a way that's negative. Also, we can model mistakes with "I learned" language. So for those of us in the room here today who may make mistakes, that when we do so, that we can follow up with "I learned." "Oh man, I messed up on making this cake. I learned to read the whole recipe before adding ingredients. Oh, I was late this morning, but I learned to hang my car keys on the hook every time." So when we find ourselves making mistakes, we can think about what we learned and then articulate that. That is a couple of things. It helps them know that even grown-ups make mistakes, and that when we do, we can learn something from it. When we model that and articulate that, they begin to think about mistakes in that same way as well. Again, erasing the idea that mistakes are bad, a part of life, and a lot of that is our attitude. A lot of that is the way that we come across with our tone, our facial expressions, our body language. How do we respond when our students make mistakes? And so making sure that they understand that it's part of life, being careful not to criticize, being careful not to show anger, being careful not to shame them when they make mistakes, but rather work on giving constructive feedback and how to improve. And so that's a learning process, I think, for us as well, because it's easy to fall into those traps of shaming, criticizing, getting angry, getting upset, because it's probably affected us. There's something that we have to clean up, there's something that has slowed us down, there's something that's disrupted our life. And so those are natural, common emotions that we really have to calibrate around to make sure that our students are understanding the right thing about mistakes, and mistakes just being part of life, and where our focus is. And so then they can feel our acceptance to their errors. We call it in a school context a culture of error. And so we want our students to know that, again, making mistakes, not getting things right, not getting it right the first time is all part of the learning experience, so that people feel accepted when there are errors that are made, and they'll even point out their own mistakes and errors, like, oh, look at what I did here. I should have known better, or this is what I'm going to do differently. Another thing that we can do is to create turnaround plans and ask, okay, what was the problem? And they're like, oh, I did poorly on my math test. And then ask, well, what is your turnaround plan? And it's basically, what are you going to do next? And then they can think about it, or you can help them come up with a plan. Is I'm just going to study a little bit every night and not wait until the last night to study. And it's like, great, let's write down that plan. So making sure that we have turnaround plans. Another thing that we can do around mistakes is teach bounce back statements. And these should be statements that are short, that you can repeat, and that students are able to work into their vocabulary. Some statements can be like, it doesn't have to be perfect, or I can learn from my opportunities, or everybody messes up sometimes, or I can't get any better unless I try it. But something that you can use when mistakes occur, so that the focus is on improvement and growth and moving forward, rather than on the mistake itself and the inconvenience that it caused either you or the family or the child. Some other things that we can work on to help build sufficiency and have them less dependent on prompts, or others is chores. Who had chores growing up? And what were some of those? You can just shout them out.
Mow the lawn.
Mow the lawn. Trash. Empty the dishwasher. Anybody else?
Pack my lunch.
Pack your lunch. Do the dishes. I had bring up firewood from the log pile. So I grew up in Iowa, and this was weather all the time. And so we had a big log pile, and my job was to fill the wheelbarrow up and bring it up closer to the house and put it in a big box. That was one of my chores that I had when I was growing up. So children as young as 4 years old can have chores. And so that applies to everybody that's in lower school. So if a child is as young as 4 years old, they can have chores. And it's an incredibly important part of building independence at a young age. It helps them problem solve. It helps them contribute to the family system. It helps them build success. It helps them take on responsibility. And so do not underestimate the power of chores. Can someone else do it? Can you do it? Absolutely. Can you do it more quickly? Can you do it better? Absolutely. But the thing is nurturing independence and fostering independence. And some kids might need more help than others to get these tasks done. So you can start with modeling the chore. This is how you do it. This is what it looks like. Then some will need reminders to get going. And eventually you will want them to create their own reminder system. And that might be a visual checklist or alarm set on their phone, depending upon the age. My next resource is, and I've mentioned this before, is Smart But Scattered. Okay, so Smart But Scattered, and this really focuses on executive functioning. But let me see if I can find chapter 10, yes. Chapter 10 is ready-made plans for teaching your child to complete daily routines. It has 20 routines, such as getting ready in the morning, bedtime, homework, long-term projects, learning to manage tasks that take lots of effort, completing chores. So completing chores is on page 141, and it has the executive skills that need to be addressed, the age appropriateness pieces, how to fade the supervision, modifications and adjustment. It has these checklists of putting belongings away and where all the belongings go, It has other checklists, this chore, how long will it take, when will you do it, the day and the time, and then a Sunday through Saturday, a checklist for chore done. So this is like a step-by-step manual of how to help your child with chores and other routines. Again, focusing on these different executive functions that it requires. And so this is a great resource if you're looking for a place to get started, and then you can modify as needed according to what your child's and family's needs are. But I highly recommend chores as a great way to help with self-sufficiency and nurturing independence. Another thing that you can do is to problem solve out loud. So one thing that's very beneficial is when children hear how we think as adults, and thinking about the pros and cons of a decision you might be making, or how you're planning out your day based on all the things that you need to do, how you might prioritize one task over another. And so the self-talk that you have in your head, if you allow it to come out of your mouth, then your children are able to hear, oh, this is how mom is prioritizing. This is how dad is ordering his day. This is how grown-ups think about the things that they need to do. They don't see what's happening behind the scene unless we verbalize that. And when we verbalize that, it may sound a little bit silly to us because we aren't doing it for ourselves. We can do all of that internally, but it really benefits them to know, oh, grown-ups need to think about these things too, and they can begin to hear that and begin to see how that works, and be able to model what problem solving looks like, what it sounds like, and what it feels like. And then another real key factor is to praise the things that they do. So forget perfection when you're first starting to build independence, and they might not do the task to your standards, but they need to know that you have seen the job that they've done and that you are happy with it. Also, I would encourage you not to correct it if they didn't fold the towel just the right way, at least not in front of them, right? If you need to correct it later in the privacy of your own bathroom, then you can do that. But if they've done it, don't refold it right in front of them. If they haven't put this somewhere just exactly, don't redo it right after they've tried to do their best. And so let them do the chore, let them do it the best that they can, praise them for it, and recognize that it's about progress, not perfection. This is something that is a really common phrase in our household: progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. We're moving in the right direction, and it's not about perfection, it's about progress. So I gave a disclaimer at the beginning, and I want to add some more disclaimers. I mentioned at the beginning that every child is unique. And I want to share with you an example of an independent young adult. So I want to share with you a story about a 20-year-old boy who is independent and some of those things that helped him to get there. Now, these are some things that I recognize as huge dangers, all right? The danger of using your own child as an example, which I'm about to do, and the danger of using yourself as a parent, which I'm about to do. I recognize that, and so I want to be very clear that I'm not insinuating at all, A, that my child is perfect, and B, that I have any idea what I'm doing as a parent. I'm trying to use this as a case study rather than as a model of what to do. So this is just a case study of an independent 20-year-old and some of the things that he has experienced. So let me tell you about my son, Jaden. My son, Jaden, is 20 years old. When he was 18, he went to visit Italy on his own. So he bought his own plane ticket. He planned his own itinerary. He figured out where to stay. He didn't have wireless, and so he figured out how to get on hotspots of various places so that he could do screenshots in order to do public transportation in Rome, and then also how to figure out to get to 2 other cities using the train. So he's 18 years old, and he's doing all of this on his own. He didn't go with a group, he didn't go with a friend, and he didn't know anybody there. And so he came back after 10 days of visiting Italy. He also bought a one-way ticket when he went to Italy, and then he just came back after 10 days. And then after he went to Italy, when he was 18, he went back and he lived in Prague, and he lived in Prague for 9 months. He traveled to Austria, UK, Denmark, France, Slovenia, and then he came back in the fall of 22. So in the fall of 2022, he came back to the United States and he said, you know, Europe is pretty cool, and I want to live there. And so he moved to Prague. He's 20 years old. He moved to Prague on December 27th. So over winter break, I took him. This is a picture of Phoenix Sky Harbor. And I took my 20-year-old son and dropped him off at the airport, and he's living in Prague. So I'm getting ready to do a talk on nurturing independence. And this is the most independent 20-year-old that I know. If I knew a different 20-year-old, I would have interviewed him, but I interviewed my son, like, how did you get here? So I'm like, how did you make this happen? And he goes, oh, I got it on my phone. He goes, I wrote this, pulled up his notes, I wrote this on June 2nd, 2023. He goes, by January 12th, 2024, I want to be back in Prague. He goes, I'm going to work 3 14-hour shifts a week. I'm going to save half of that and save a minimum of $10,000. And then that changed to 4 12-hour shifts a week, and he saved well over his goal. I'm going to open a savings account. I'm going to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu and gym as often as possible. I want to volunteer every week. I want to find a student visa, and he wasn't able to get a student visa, but he is working on a work visa. And then look into potential roommates and apartments, and then find a job for the spring or the fall. So those are all of the things that he had written that he wanted to accomplish 6 months out, all of which he was able to do. And again, the student visa ended up being a work visa, and his specific plans about the hours and shifts that he worked changed. I'm biased, I'm his dad, but I was like, oh, that's pretty impressive. So we're just sitting here at the kitchen, at the kitchen table. I'm like, oh, that's pretty impressive. I'm like, what goals do you have for 2024? So I'm having this conversation with him, I think, the day before he flies out. And he goes, I have them written down. He goes, I want to do an apprenticeship in Prague, which he's doing. I want to maintain my health and weight. I want to get bigger and stronger. He added over 40 pounds of muscle in about a 6-month period. I want to train hard in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. I want to brush up on my French. I want to be a B1 level in Czech, which is learning the Czech language. I want to volunteer in Prague at hospitals and institutions. I want to practice daily prayer, meditation, and knowledge. And I want to become a better artist, including drawing and playing instruments. And I'm like, wow. How did you come about these goals? And so these, again, are all things that he has written down. He goes, well, I found things that I'm interested in, and I found things that I feel good about doing. I found things that are good for me, that wouldn't be selfish or hurt others, but are skills that I would like to develop. I'm like, well, what types of things do you have in place to help you accomplish your goals? I'm like, I'm learning here as you go. He goes, well, I have a daily routine to set up for the day. He didn't include this, but I'm including this. He makes his bed every day. He's 20 years old. He has his own room. Doesn't have to. He makes his bed every day. Actually, just like his dad, I make my bed every day too. But anyway, he makes his bed every day. He goes for a walk in the park. We live somewhat near a park. He goes for a walk in the park. He does yoga every day. He meditates every day. So he thinks about or prays about his activities during the day and what he needs to do, and then he has a brief schedule in mind to continue working on his goals. I think I need to pause here. because I can see the looks on some of your faces. I need to pause here to deliver something really important. Jaden was not a golden child. We have an easy child, and Jaden is not him. So Jaden failed in substantially significant ways that I would say are embarrassing to me as a parent. Jaden, when he started driving, got multiple speeding tickets. He had a suspended license. Jaden got suspended from school more than once. Jaden dropped out of high school. And the list goes on with details that I am just too painful for me to share. So I have told you some things that I think are pretty remarkable about what he's able to accomplish. But this was not a straight A kid. This was not a follow the rules kid. This was not a, boy, so easy to have this child. There were lots of sleepless nights. There were lots of painful experiences. And so when I talk about letting your child fail, I'm not talking about them getting a B+ on a science project. So I just am sharing that with you here because, again, I have 3 children. One of them is easy. Jaden is not. And I just want to let you know that even if you are raising a not easy child, that there is an opportunity to get from here to there, wherever there is. So these are the 2 most important practices for long-term success. And then I love my footnote here, according to Curtis. No research whatsoever. But these are really grown out of listening to Jaden and his story. That these were the 2 most important things that as I listened to him, that I wish I would have done a better job as a parent. And one is, one is instill the practice and value of personal goal setting. And I say personal goal setting because the goals that stuck for Jaden were the ones that he was interested in, which would not have matched the goals that I would have had for him necessarily. And so being able to foster your child's interest and direct that in a way so that they can set their own personal goals is huge. I'll go ahead real quickly. That in Thrivers, there's a section in here about goal setting, and I pulled these 5 things from here, but there's a whole section about goal setting and how to teach goal setting, because this is a skill that can be taught. So again, different personalities, different makeups, different children, all of these types of things, but just really focusing on things that we can do as parents to teach them these types of skills. So when they set goals, in order to be successful, they have to have the necessary skills, abilities, resources, mentors, and knowledge to succeed. Not need excess help. So something that they can do on their own without a lot of help from others. Have enough time to succeed. Display the interest and passion to persevere, again, things that they're interested in. And then be in control means that they have to be able to determine the success of their goal, not someone else. So it can't be outside of their agency. Like the goal can only happen if something else happens. It has to be something that they have control over. They're able to accomplish this. So that's one of the things that I think is most important for long-term success. Instill the practice and value of personal goal setting. Number 2, create room for and highlight the benefits of daily health practices. Again, if we think about Jaden's journey and his story, the things that he was able to do long-term was because of the things that he was able to do daily. And I don't believe that if he wasn't able to do the things daily, then he's able to accomplish the things long term. So right now, we do a lot of that for you at school. What I mean by that is we do mindfulness every day here at school with your child in every classroom. We do PE 4 days a week or 5 days a week. So we have physical activity that's built into our day every day here at school. They experience music or art every week. They do reading on a regular basis. What I'm asking you to consider is extending that to weekends or to summers, because that shows that it's a family value and not just a school thing or just a PCDS thing. So if the only time that they do physical activity and the only time that they do music and art and the only time that they do mindfulness is at school, then they're going to associate it with a school thing and not with a life thing. And the only way that they're able to make that transference is if you're able to do it outside of school and have them recognize that it's a life thing, not just a school thing. And again, these are things that can be done 2 minutes a day on weekends of a period of mindfulness, of making sure that you have physical exercise, make sure that you're getting outside, and if you're able to build that into your family systems and not just your school systems, that will help them be a lifelong habit formers. So creating room for, and again, that's your responsibility in terms of your schedule and what that looks like. And these are not time-consuming things. They're consistency things. They're consistency things. And highlight the benefits of daily health practices. And then I think there's modeling that occurs as well around that. So back to my interview with Jaden, I'm like, how did you arrive at being able to hold yourself accountable for your own goals and actions? Because these are all his goals. I don't check in on any of them. I don't check in on any of them to make sure that he's done them. There's no accountability at this point from a parent perspective for him. And he says, well, there's been a lot of times where I've had similar goals, but I've tried to take the easiest way there. And he said, even if it happens by getting the easiest way there, it doesn't last. And he said, I'm tired of trying to take easy ways and half measures, and I thought I would just try honest work and see what happens. Well, it's nice, very good. Took a long, painful time for him to discover that, but let me say a couple things. He discovered that, and he discovered that on his own. So he was able to get to that place. So then I had a burning question, which was difficult for me to ask, but a burning question. I'm like, well, I'm presenting to parents, so this is really important. I'm like, all of this was just, lead up. All of this was just, preface. Do parents have a role at all in nurturing independence? And what is that? And he thought for a moment. He goes, well, they definitely have a role, just not as big as you'd hope. I'm like, that's probably what I thought it was going to be. And so it's a matter of like walking the fine line between, he explained to me that it's like walking the fine line between guiding and supporting and not enabling. Meaning, and he shared with me, you want to be there to support them when they fail, and you can't pick them back up every time. And I'm like, well, what does that feel like? And he goes, well, it feels like, being encouraged and not being rescued. I'm like, And so Jaden emphasized 3 things. He emphasized love, support, and acceptance. And I'm like, well, those are nice words, but what does that look like in real life? And he said, words of encouragement along the way. So having sympathy, and he used the word sympathy, I would probably use the word empathy, but he used the word sympathy, having sympathy in certain situations. And when at a roadblock, he said, having sympathy instead of telling me what I did wrong or fixing it for me. Let me just say that I did a bunch of those. I did a bunch of telling him what he did wrong, and I did a bunch of fixing it for him. I have a wonderful wife who did a lot of sympathy. And he didn't come away from that saying, boy, Dad, I'm really glad that you told me all of the things that I did wrong. He knew that, right? He knew what he had done wrong. And he didn't need anybody fixing it for him. But what he did need was a place of empathy, of being present with him during those times. And he goes, not enabling, but meeting part way. So we don't pay for his phone bill. But there was a period of time when he was searching for a job that he needed employers to call him back. And so we sat down with him. One of the times that he came back from Europe, we sat down with him and like, look, we're not paying for your phone bill. But for 3 months, we're going to pay for this, prepaid, limited thing, and then that's it. So that gave him the opportunity to get a job, get a call back, and then pay for the phone bill for, himself. And then he shared, I remember when I started kickboxing, it was pretty expensive per month, but I needed shin pads. And he goes, Mom got shin pads because I was paying the monthly fee. Did you hear that again? Mom got shin pads. But meeting them, halfway, not doing everything for him. And we, as I imagine many of you do, have the means to do more than what we chose to do for him. We just wanted to nurture independence. So could we have paid the monthly fees? Could we pay phone bill? Yeah, we could. We chose not to because we want to get him to a place of independence on his own so that he can live the life that he wants to live apart from Mom and Dad. Preparing for this presentation really gave me an occasion to reflect. And I'm like, is it really about nurturing independence, which is the title, or is it more about embracing independence? Because quite honestly, I'm not sure I really did anything to nurture independence in Jaden. He was just that kid. I had to get to a point where I was comfortable with Jaden living his own life rather than the life that we as parents wanted for him. Let me say that again. I had to get comfortable with Jaden living his own life rather than the life that we as parents wanted for him. And that is not easy. Is extremely difficult. I think that we could have forced, coerced, guilted, consequenced him into living the life we wanted for him for a longer period of time. I think we could have done that. But he would have been miserable, and frankly, we would have been too. So the life that we wanted for him was to graduate from high school, to go to college, right? That's what we did. That's what we're about. We were both in education. Jaden's not in college. So we had to let go of what we wanted for him and let him be himself. Again, I think he could be in college today. I think we could have made different choices for Jaden to be in college today. I don't think Jaden would be a happy college student. I don't think we'd be happy college parents. Oh boy, that's fun. And this is on tape? Great, it's fantastic. So I think too often we as parents conditionalize success or conditionalize happiness. My child will only be successful or my child will only be happy if, and then these are the conditions. My child will be only happy if they go to college, which was a belief that my wife and I held for years. My child will only be happy if they go to a certain college, which is a belief that I think some PCS parents have. My child will only be happy if they make a certain amount of money or if they live a certain lifestyle. So we conditionalize what their success should be like or what their happiness should be like. And with good intent, with good intentions, with good motivations, that we want to protect our children from heartache and hardship. Right? That's what we want to do, protect them from heartache and hardship. And as parents, we know a path that can help shield them from some of life's difficulties. Why? Because we've been there and we've done that. We know how hard it was for us. We know how difficult it was for us. We know how challenging it was for us. And if we can just shield them from the same heartache and hardship that we endured, then they will be happy and successful. But here's the hard news, is that heartache and hardship can still happen even when all of the criteria is achieved. Even when all of the criteria is achieved, life is still hard. And hardship will still occur, and heartache will still occur. And so I have now come to believe, this is my own belief. It's all been my own belief. And I've now come to believe in a multiplicity of paths to success and happiness. That there is a path with which I'm familiar, because it was largely my path. It's comfortable, it's preferred, but it's not the only way. And so people, and I would say specifically, I've come to understand that my children can experience success and happiness even if they don't follow my checklist. And that's really been a bit humbling for me. So I think that there comes a time where you acknowledge and honor the autonomy of each soul, and I wish I would have been able to do that earlier for Jaden's sake. So I've had some time to reflect about this again with preparing this, and when I think about my own life, it's not exactly what my own parents envisioned for me. That what I'm doing and who I am is not exactly what my parents envisioned for me. If I did exactly what my parents hoped and expected for me, I would probably hate every single day of my life. And that's not an exaggeration. But thankfully, my parents have let me be me, and I have felt their love and support even into my adult years. And that love, that support, and acceptance is really what I'm hoping to pass to my own children on this incredibly difficult and painful and beautiful journey of parenting. There we go. So I'm offering you some suggested resources. Smart but Scattered. Again, it's really around executive functioning skills, but also gives some great tips in terms of chores, checklists, a bunch of guides around scaling back, age appropriateness. That's Smart but Scattered. Thrivers is by Michelle Borba, and it is the surprising reasons why some kids struggle and others shine. 7 teachable skills that set happy, healthy, high-performing kids apart. So I used a little bit of Thrivers, but there's a lot more in here that has a little bit different focus or emphasis than on just nurturing independence. And then for those of you who don't like to read but like to watch, there's a short film, Chasing Childhood, and it's worth checking out, and there's how to access that film. You may need to register, just an email and a password. It doesn't cost anything. It's not a subscription or anything like that, but Chasing Childhood. All right. Any questions? Yes?
How do you encourage more like intrinsic motivation with chores and things like that versus like just rewarding for chores?
Yeah, so I would highlight the benefits of the chores and what it does for the family and your appreciation around that. And it's still a little bit of external motivation. It's not tangible. It's more like an intangible external motivation. But when they see how much you appreciate it, the fact that they're contributing to the family, that they're learning through doing this. Oh, isn't this neat how you've learned, these skills and you do it every day? That's so impressive that you do it every day. So it can begin to transfer to intrinsic motivation. So I'm not sure I answered the question. I just gave you a different tool, right? A different reward system of intangible rather than tangible, about praise, how it contributes to the family, your appreciation around that. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah.
When do you think that you should have been more independent than Jaden? When is that crossroads that we should look for?
I don't think I'm not sure there's I don't think there's a point. I think there's a process. And so it's not at a certain age. It's just, I think, a gradual letting go. And so some of you are on the early edges with 4 and 5, and a lot of these things aren't yet age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. But there's this gradual kind of letting go rather than a marker. And it's going to be harder to be able to gradually let that go if you're not letting anything go along the way. If you're not letting anything go along the way, then when you need to give them a lot more autonomy and independence, it can feel like a floodgate, or you're not to the right stage yet of letting that go. I'm trying to think of, Jaden. I don't know for sure what everyone done differently. He felt pretty hard, and so, yeah, it's tough to say. But I would say it's gradual rather than punctiliar. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is really amazing. For those with multiple children, we don't want to make a complete process, like you mentioned, for each child and their journey. So any tips of how to make it concierge, boutique for each child, but have consistency in the help?
Yeah, so I think one of the things was about the goals being personal, and so that's easy to tailor, right? It's like, what do you want your goal, to be? January is a good month for that if you haven't done that. And they really shouldn't be year-long goals for children at this age. They should be like week-long or maybe month-long, goals. And so that's certainly something that you can tailor to, each individual. I don't think you have to tailor customized chores. Chores are chores. And so this is part of our family, and you don't like them any more than I like taking out the trash. We don't like doing these things. And so those don't have to be, tailor dependent. My oldest son was the easy one. So he was, straight A student, really easy. And but he didn't want to drive. So he didn't get his license until 18. And this is an interesting thing. I haven't thought a lot about it, whether or not it was the right or best thing to do, is that his mom forced him to take a driving school so that he could be independent. So he took away his independence, right, by not giving him a choice around taking driving school so that he could be independent and have a car. So it's kind of an ironic situation there. But we wanted him to be at least able to know how to drive, whether he chose to do that or not. He still hates driving, but at least he has his license. And so that was different for our family in terms of in terms of one getting his license super late and the other one couldn't wait until he was 15 and a half.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
What are some of the resources you use for yourself and your wife to get through these troubling times? I know you talk about resources that can help you with your own child, but for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything that helped you with this journey?
Yep, support groups. So we were some members of support groups, and that's great because no matter what you're dealing with your own child, you're not the only one. And it feels lonely, like you are the only one that's struggling, but believe me, there's support groups out there for everything imaginable. And so when you have the courage to let your child fail, you feel like a failure as a parent. I hated going to those support groups. Because I felt awful. I felt so embarrassed. I felt like such a miserable parent. But it was the most important thing to me because I learned so much from other parents who are at different stages along the journey. And so I also recognized that some of what I was feeling was far more about me and my pride than it was about Jaden and really helping him. Ugh, sorry. Any other questions? All right. It's 9:15. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.